crafty friends, it's Jess from jesscrafts.com, and today I'm here as part of a very special blog hop from Tahira Atcha, and it is called the Advent Calendar Extravaganza. I will leave you a link in the video description below so that you can check out this amazing event. It has 25 days of inspiration, but also 25 sponsors and over 60 special guests, and I am one of the guests, and you can head over to my blog to leave a comment for a chance to win, but also head back to Tahira's blog and check out all the other ones that are there. And you have until the end of December to leave all of your comments for all the different chances to win from the 25 awesome sponsors, including Newton's Nook Designs. And for today's card and tutorial, I'll be using a stamp set from Newton's Nook Designs. It's a recent release called Whispering Pines. And the concept behind this stamp set is to give you that watercolor look without having to know how to watercolor. So you'll get the look of watercolor evergreen trees very easily with just some simple stamping. And to kind of take advantage of that watercolor look, I'm actually going to be using some distress inks because they're reactive with water. I'm going to be inking up the stamp and then spritzing it with a really light fine mist of spray and then stamping it on, which again further adds to that sort of washed look. There are two single trees from the stamp set that I'll be using, a larger and a smaller stamp. And I started with pine needles and lucky clover, but I'm also going to add in forest moss. When I first started the card, I thought that I would only do like one line of trees and I would just mix the two colors in together for some interest. But then I decided I really wanted to make it look more of a forest. If I had the forethought to realize that I was going to do a forest the whole time, I certainly would have started with my lighter color, started in the background, and moved forward, layering the trees on top of each other and getting them darker. That's actually the starting with your background as lighter and moving darker into your foreground is something that I've heard Bob Ross talk about a lot recently, because his videos were made available on Hulu, and so I've been watching them while crafting because, you know, he just has such that calming presence, and he has a lot of good things to say about like composition and that sort of thing, so they're fun to check out if you're on Hulu. And so here I started with the pine needles. I've stamped a bunch of the large trees. Then I decide that I want to do the full forest, so I'm going to start filling in the rest of the forest with lucky clover. Luckily, because I'm working with distress inks, the layering and the blending of them, it doesn't make it super obvious which was stamped first. So when I go back and I stamp with the forest moss, which in this case is actually going to be my lightest color, it's going to still look like that they were stamped in the background. They might have been stamped first. So I lucked out there, but if you were trying to recreate a sort of similar forest look, I definitely would suggest starting in the background. It makes things a little bit easier spacing-wise, too, because I was having a little bit of a hard time knowing exactly how many of each color I would want or something like that. And what I'm essentially doing is pressing the ink pad into the stamp and then spritzing with a fine mist of water. However, I was finding that over time, the stamp would get like a lot of water left on the block, and so I'm tapping it with a napkin every now and then. I had experimented with some different colors. I thought at first I was going to use the forest moss, but it actually turns out I was using the bundled sage. And I thought, oh, it would be nice if I did like a mix of trees everywhere. But then when I stamped that bundled sage in the foreground, I realized that the pine needles was way too overpowering. So I tried stamping it again with the bundled sage to see if maybe just, you know, adding the same stamp over top would be enough to darken it up, but it wasn't working out. And again, it goes back to what the principle I said before about, you know, lighter colors making more sense in the background. So luckily it's a clear stamp, and therefore I can continue to stamp in the same place multiple times. And so I'm able to take my darkest pine needles and re-stamp over that light colored tree that I created in the foreground. And this is generally something that I took advantage of. Sometimes I didn't get the exact perfect impression that I wanted, and since I don't even have to worry about lining these up perfectly because I am creating a very sort of washed watercolor look, I can easily spray it a couple of times or stamp it a couple of times. Now, once I finished that, I wanted to create the look of snow, and rather than actually using the snow stamp that comes in the set, I thought it'd be fun to spray it with some Perfect Pearls, because Perfect Pearls have a little bit of water in them, and you can create the spray with water, and so it will further react the distress inks. However, I was sure to dry the distress inks before I spritzed it because I didn't want it to spread too much. I just wanted the lines to be a little bit more blurry. This whole time I've been working on Tim Holtz Distress watercolor paper or watercolor cardstock, and I find that that's a pretty good one for this technique because it's bright white, so it looks more like snow, but also because it is not the best watercolor paper, and so the colors don't spread as much. And in this instance, I wanted limited spreading. But if you are trying to do a lot of watercolor over time, the paper definitely does pill. I'm using the Simply Seasonal set, which is a new sentiment stamp set from Newton's Nook Designs, and it kind of goes with the Simply Sentimental stamp set, which had a lot of general sentiments, but Simply Seasonal has a lot of holiday specific, like Happy Easter, Happy St. Patrick's Day, but then of course Christmas and holidays and Valentine's Day, things like that. So I'm just going to choose the Happy Holidays. It includes 3 different happies so that you can use a variety of fonts. And then I'm going to take the 2 little silhouettes from the Whispering Pines image because I think it looks really cute to have that little dog and cat there sort of staring off into the beautiful forest. Once that has all dried, and I did hit it with a heat gun to further dry it, I decided to mat it on some black cardstock, which will really make that sentiment and the silhouettes pop. And I did also trim it down a little bit because I was using a full sheet of the Tim Holtz, but in order to get that matte, I needed it to be a little bit smaller. And I'm going to adhere that. I did want to bring in a little bit more detail, as I did think that all the card was pretty. It wasn't quite Christmassy enough. I wanted something a little bit extra, and I wanted maybe a pop of red. So I pulled in this sort of candy cane-esque ribbon here. I don't find myself using a lot of ribbon anymore, but I do tend to like it when I use it. And I'm not an expert bow tire, so I just used a simple strip of ribbon across the top. And since that ribbon had enough detail of its own, I didn't need something like a bow. And also a bow would make it harder to mail because I am going to be trying to mail off quite a few of my Christmas cards, and I don't want to have to bother with extra postage. So that is it for my card today. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're interested in more crafting tutorials, including Newton's Nook Designs or other watercolor techniques and distressing techniques, be sure to subscribe to my channel. Don't forget to go hop along at Tahira Atcha's Advent Calendar Extravaganza for your chance to win. Thanks for watching. Bye.